welcome to We the People. One of the very underreported issues of our time is why the recommendations of the 7th Pay Commission has the military up in arms, literally. We've had the serving chiefs petition the government before, of course, the 7th Pay Commission submitted its report, and much of it was cleared by the cabinet. We've also had many prominent voices, among them retired chiefs, who've been literally red flagging this issue and saying that these recommendations, if accepted, would in effect mean that the military is placed at a grade much lower than other central services, including in particular the IAS and the police service. One of the most contentious recommendations of the 7th Pay Commission is actually to equalize and bring the police and the forest service up to the level of the IAS, leaving the military out in the cold. The other bone of contention has been what's called the hardship allowance. The Pay Commission recommending a higher hardship allowance for soldiers, let's say, who posted at Siachen, but also increasing the hardship allowance for bureaucrats who posted in Guwahati or any part of the northeast. How seriously should the government pay attention to the disquiet within the military? Can it damage and rupture the larger military-civilian relationship? Why is no one talking more about these recommendations, many of which have not yet been accepted by the government but have been referred to further subcommittees? Let me start with General VP Malik, former Chief of Army Staff. General Malik, what is the biggest concern?
Barkha, let me start with the impact of the 7th Pay Commission recommendations so far. Yeah. You are emphasizing the word recommendation. Yes. It has caused considerable amount of despondency, both amongst the serving people as well as, and there is also a very strong feeling of discrimination. There's a strong feeling of blatant injustice that has been done to them over the years.
Those are strong words coming from
yes,
a former chief.
So I know.
Do you use them with consideration?
I know what I am saying. It has already caused a feeling of resignation amongst large number of people, which is not a good thing. People feel that we are not being heard, we are being taken for granted, which is not a good thing at all for the national security of our country. The issues are, you have in fact listed. The first one, I would say that the two different matrix that have been prepared, one for the civilian employees and the other one is for the defense force personnel.
Yes.
Now, the matrix which has been constructed for the defense force personnel, when it is put into action, compared to the civilian matrix,
yes,
it will cause stagnation amongst the people, particularly the cutting edge at the rank of lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier, and also at the higher level.
Okay.
So that's one, that the number of steps that have been given in this matrix are much less. Now the second one is that earlier it was the IAS which was getting that edge. Now it is the police which is getting the edge, and also forest service which is getting the edge. And the remarks are that they are doing a more difficult job, a more complex job, as if our handling, the defense forces, handling the kind of warfare equipment that we have got and the kind of warfare situation in which we are placed, as if that is not complex.
And also the irony that actually the army will be called in where the civil administration fails, as we saw in Haryana, when the Jat agitation was there. It was actually collapse of the bureaucracy.
That will cause the functional problem, both when we are dealing with the civil services, in the case of Haryana or in J&K or in Northeast, etc. Also within the services, when we have to deal with people from the defense estate, MES and other services.
General Malik, if you can confirm this, 18 retired chiefs actually wrote to the Prime Minister against these recommendations, warning against them. Were you among those 18 chiefs? I would assume you were. And did you hear back from the Prime Minister at all?
Well, yes, we did.
Write the letters.
We did write the letter, and I was one of the signatories, and we didn't get any response at all.
And that's upsetting. I mean, these are 18 retired chiefs.
If you take the retired chiefs for granted like this, it has never happened in our history. All I can say that. It's again, this is the kind of thing which when it happens, it causes a huge upset on the morale of the people.
Let me just get a perspective before I go to the politicians from CM Vasudev. You've been finance secretary. In a sense, you're on the unpopular side of this debate, because many would ask why a bureaucrat who's serving in Guwahati should get more than a soldier serving in Siachen. Nobody can really wrap their head around this.
Of course, the importance of maintaining the morale of the armed forces is extremely important. But I think this type of inter-service type of differences and disputes, and because it is more a comparison, it's not in absolute terms that people are dissatisfied. They are more dissatisfied that he is getting more, I am not getting what he is.
But doesn't that matter, sir?
No, it does matter. What I am trying to say is that this type of thing is inherent in the type of pay commission structure that we are trying to follow. From very old times, right from the beginning, when we had a totally government-led economy model, centralized planning model, there was no private sector, everything was in the hands of the government. So unfortunately, we are continuing with that. Every 10 years, we have a new pay commission.
What's the alternative?
10 years. Alternative is, you know, it is so difficult for any pay commission to compare the needs and the morale requirements of the armed forces, of the university professors, of the scientists, of the civil servants, of the police. It is very difficult to put them on one place.
So what should be done? Disband it
I
altogether?
think it has to be designed in such a way that each service, each sector has its own pay commission, which is done more frequently.
Okay, quick comment, General Malik. I want to then open it.
That is the only way to deal with this.
So you're actually saying it's an unwieldy.
Just one more point I want to make, that, you know, armed forces, because the people have a lot of sympathy, and I think they do represent the strength of the state in many ways. So whatever their grievances are, they do get highlighted much more. But I am sure that the grievances amongst the professors and the teaching community, amongst the scientists, about their differences with the civil services are maybe even much more. But they don't get the same degree of priority because of the emotive issues which get attached with when we talk about armed forces.
Quick comment there.
So that also
fair point, General Malik.
Because the problem is that the equations have been reversed now, and that is causing a huge problem in our social status. I'm talking of the armed forces personnel, as well as their functionality within the services with the government state level as well as central level. So both social status also is important. Otherwise, why would the youngsters join the armed forces?
All right, let's get political responses. Ajoy, let me start with you, then I'll take it to P. N. Vijay of the BJP.
Yeah.
How do you see this this disparity?
No, if you look at the recommendations, obviously some of them are totally off the page. And I don't want to get into technicalities, but some of this like non-financial
I mean, you were a police officer before you were a politician. Dilip Trivedi is here. One of the big debates is equalizing the police with the IAS.
No, I think the fundamental issue is the IAS wants to keep its superiority, the police wants to get equal to the IAS, the forest service gets very cheesed off, and the army guys have no association to put up their issues. All other services have association. The army guys have no access to political people, frankly speaking. The IAS and IPS have phenomenal access to political people, and so they can push their agenda. The army comes from a fundamental issues like General Malik and we are talking, it comes from what is respect and izzat is critically important from an army perspective of career. So you have an organization whose voices don't get heard, they have no political access, they don't have association, so they continue to get the raw end of the stick commission by commission. How do we fix it? I think the fundamental issue is go back to the drawing board and say no service should have the birthright, irrespective of the Indian police service, the foreign service, the revenue service, to have a birthright of growth, saying that I joined, I've given an exam and suddenly I become so competent for 35 years, I can manage is ridiculous. I think the joint management cadre which Mr. Chidambaram, and coming back to that, which recommended it 25 odd years back is fine. The defense has got a very, very narrow pyramidal selection process.
Okay.
So you have a lot of people, and it's at the end of the day, it's 1.3% reach the top. Whereas in the police or the IAS or civil, and being a civil servant, you are entitled, it is like your birthright, you know. You're entitled, however incompetent you are, you'll become the Director General of Police or the additional chief, or you become a Chief Secretary, great. And that fundamental issue is wrong for the country.
So P. N. Vijay, why are we not seeing the BJP more proactive on this issue? It is a BJP government.
On the larger question, I think after all, the armed forces and the civil service are two hands of the government. They're extremely important. And I think immediately what's happened is that we have accepted most of the recommendations of the 7th Pay Commission and we are implementing it. I don't think that's the end of the story. And
what do you personally believe? Do you
I believe, and
the
I think the party is also very sensitive to that. Historically, I think in India, the civil service has had an upper hand in a way, whether we like it or not. And this is led to very unintended consequences. First of all, I feel the matter of defending the country has become very sophisticated. It's not just a question of some foot soldiers. We are dealing with very sophisticated electronic equipment and stealth missiles or what have you.
But how should that impact
and
how
I think we should
the military is
recognize that in
compensated?
today's day and age, the question of defending the country and waging a war is as complex and as tough as putting out a communal riot in some place or handling a flood.
You support an equalization between the bureaucracy and the military? An equalization, because currently it's not equal.
I think there's a very big decision with PM Saab has to take, and it's not really my view that's going to count, though I'd like to express my views. I think the time has come for us to have some parity between the armed forces and the civil service for two important reasons. One is that again, as I said, the armed forces are becoming very, very sophisticated, and secondly, that there is a big shortage of good officers in the armed
so you
forces.
have to incentivize
Today,
it.
you know, the army is struggling because there is a middle level skill gap.
So let me get Ajay here. Ajay, the fact is that, and what people have maybe not understood, is that this goes beyond, as Mr. Vasudev said, okay, he gets more and I get less. This, according to you, actually impacts the chain of command on the ground.
On the one hand, we talk about equalization between this bureaucracy and the army, but what has happened in the 7th Pay Commission is that what the army was historically equal to, which was the Indian Police Service, has now been placed on a higher pedestal. The IAS
government has
and
not
IFS.
accepted that.
Government has not yet accepted that?
That is a recommendation, but government
has not yet accepted it. It said that we will refer it to a select committee. But bear in mind that the 6th Pay Commission anomalies have still not been resolved by a select committee, which is there. So select committees basically exist for the purpose of kicking the can down the road.
Okay.
From the time you join the military to the time you go on pension and die, you are discriminated against on 5 counts, and let me quickly enumerate them. First of all, the starting salaries of the military have been fixed in the 7th Pay Commission in a manner that does not conform to the own fixing principles of the 7th Pay Commission itself. Number 2, at 4, 9 and 13 years of service, the other All India services get 3 increments each. Whereas the military gets just one increment, which means that at the end of 13 years of service, they are 6 increments ahead of the military. Number 3, there is this thing called non-functional upgradation, where the military, which has a steep promotion pyramid, only 1 person out of 100 becomes a lieutenant general, and in the civil services, 80% become that top grade. Then in terms of allowances, we've already brought out just now the example you gave of the hardship allowance. And finally, pensions. The military pensions are fixed on the basis of what they call abrogated service, reduced numbers of years that they serve, because Jawans go home at the age of 35 to 40, officers go home earlier also, whereas the civil servants all serve to 60.
85% soldiers retire by the age of 37.
So, and what has happened? The 7th Pay Commission has effectively granted 1 rank, 1 pension to all civil services without their asking for it, whereas the military has struggled for 30 years to get it.
That is an eloquent way of actually putting it, that equalization between the forest service, the police service and the IAS. But let me get a perspective from the police. Dilip Trivedi is somebody who's been the Director General of the CRPF. How do you see this?
One, I would like to clarify that it's not that there was a big discrimination between the police and the IAS earlier also. The issues were that there was delay in the years that took you to reach that level.
Okay.
So to come out with this, that we've been brought at par with the IAS, I don't think that's a very correct way of putting it. On paper, we were always at par. It was only the implementation.
Not the increments. They were not getting
it. Increments will follow from promotions.
No, you're actually saying it's just a tweaking. You're not really been elevated.
No, I'm saying that, yes. And this problem will continue, because we will still be held up with our promotions and other things over a period of time, and we will continue to get get our promotions later, and we will continue to get our increments based on those promotions later.
But sir, unlike the military, the police does not actually retire. You do not have 85% of your force retiring at the age of 37.
Yes, I do agree. So but those are service conditions which you see very well when you join an organization. You see, when what happens in any system is, I mean, today we can decry the IAS. I mean, a lot of people in the police say, why should the IAS have this? Then the people in the paramilitaries who say, why should the IPS have this? So this thing goes on.
I could foresee.
I didn't interrupt you. Please,
no, I said I could not foresee that kind of retirement when I joined the service.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. So it's happening with us also. You know, the bigger the batches come, they get retired earlier also. So it's happening with us also.
Not like this. Not 85%
like this,
gone by 37 years old.
Obviously,
nothing like that in any other service.
Obviously, Barkha, because our retirement age is fixed at 60, while they have graded
so in a sense, you're
ages.
saying that when you sign up for a service, you know what you're signing up for.
Exactly.
We
we should not be cribbing against the IAS also.
No, just a point. You see, the defense has this command structure, and they continuously recommend to have a pyramidal structure, because otherwise the army will be in great deal of trouble. Civil services don't have the challenge. They can keep promoting themselves.
Yeah.
So here the defense is being penalized because they have a pyramidal structure saying, listen, for a command and control, we cannot have 200 lieutenant generals. Civil services have no compunction on having 200 DGs or 200 chief secretaries.
Yeah. Sanjay Bhusreddy, you actually represent the IAS Officers Association. The point was also made that the military doesn't even have such an association. But what really struck me was what Ajay said, that, you know, you've seen veterans on the streets agitating for one rank, one pension, but the 7th Pay Commission effectively just gives that to the central services without any, without one moment of agitation.
Barkha, let me first clarify. There are certain things have been said which are factually incorrect.
Like?
Number one, by saying that the Pay Commission has not been kind to the armed forces, it's wrong. You please read word by word the Pay Commission's recommendations. Number two, it said that the civil services are given higher. It's not. You see the actual
higher hardship allowance.
No. Let's not pick up one allowance here or there. If you pick up one allowance here or there, then I would say that an army officer who is at Siachen is being given a high calorific value food which is very expensive.
So what should he do?
No.
What should he do?
Let me complete.
He barely survives the weather, the climate, the avalanches.
Let me complete.
Are you grudging him his food?
Let me complete. Now, will you crib for that? No. That army personnel needs that.
Yes.
Therefore, it is given to a person who is holding a post at a higher altitude.
Yes.
So nobody is cribbing that.
Okay.
What I am saying, you can't pick up one allowance here, one allowance there, and start beating the commission.
It's symbolic.
Oh.
It is symbolic. I would argue that an
everywhere in the world.
Siachen.
Please bear me for 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
And I think that would make clear. The armed forces have been given, if you see the matrix, it's the only armed forces which have been given by the last Pay Commission a military special pay.
Yes.
To give them
military
a slightly
pay. Yes.
military service pay, to give them an upper edge vis-a-vis the civil services, which is not to the civil services.
Incorrect. Not. This is done universally. It's not done only in India.
No, it's done universally. But
that's not, it's the only.
I'm not saying that, sir. What I am saying that it is not given to the civil services. It's given. Suppose if you pick up a particular scale or a particular rank or a grade pay, other than the basic pay and grade pay, there is an MSP, right? Which is not to other. So let's not say that they have been put into a position which is detrimental to the.
But please give an example of anything that's been said that is actually incorrect.
No,
you said that it's incorrect. So please give us an example of what is incorrect.
Now, one thing which has been said about the hard duty allowances.
Yes.
What the hard duty allowance was 12.5%, and it was for everyone, armed forces as well as civil servants.
No, not for the armed forces.
Let me complete, sir. If I am wrong, please correct me.
Okay, quickly make your points now.
It is 12.5%. There was another allowance which the state governments were paying was 25% to officers posted in Northeast for the entire career. All India services, IAS, IPS, IFS, they have to go there and stay there for their career. They have given a cadre. What the 7th Pay Commission has done, it has clapped this 25% plus 12.5%, and that is where the problem is coming. No central government has always given 12.5% to whether armed forces or to civil servants.
Sir, 1 minute, just a minute. You have actually lost me in these numbers. From what I understand as a lay person, even with the recommendations of increase in the hardship allowance, the 7th Pay Commission recommends an increase in the hardship allowance to 31,500 rupees from the current 21,000, but it recommends 55,000 rupees plus for a bureaucrat posted in Guwahati. So let me bring you in, Navdeep.
See, firstly, let me say that the 7th Pay Commission report has been an absolutely incoherent report. However, it is not just the fault of the 7th Pay Commission, it's a legacy of the earlier pay commissions and earlier policies which have been cemented by and solidified by the 7th Pay Commission. All these anomalies were there earlier also, but we were expecting the 7th Pay Commission to kind of rationalize these anomalies. What he was saying, 12.5% special disturbance allowance, additional 25% is called additional incentive, monetary incentive to all India officers only of the Northeast cadres earlier on, which means 37.5% additional basic pay. Now, the 7th Pay Commission has recommended that you rationalize it to 30%, but extend it to all cadres who are posted in the Northeast and also to places like Ladakh. The net result is that, for example, in Ladakh, an officer of the police, forest or administrative services gets 55,000 rupees, an army officer gets 10,000 rupees. So that is the net result of this. We are not saying, these recommendations have not been accepted by the government, and I'm sure they will be rationalized, but these are the hard figures.
Let me get CM Vasudevan. So you said that it should not matter what the relative is, the absolute should matter.
No, I'm not saying that relative should not matter, relative should matter. What I said was that for a pay commission which has to deal with the requirements of different sectors of the economy, armed forces, scientists, professors, it is very difficult for one pay commission to try to come out with a formula which will satisfy relativity across the spectrum. That's what I was saying. You know, world over, the pension scheme is such that the longer you serve, the more is your pension entitlement. That is how pension systems work the world over. We are no different. So if now here we are arguing the other way, because somebody is working less, therefore he should get more.
They're not working less, sir. They are forced to retire. To keep the army lean. They don't choose to retire.
Every country wants to have a young armed forces, so it's there everywhere. But what I'm saying is a pension system is designed in a manner that the longer you serve, the more is your pension.
I'm going to get
number two. The point was made that the one rank, one pension, army, armed forces had to struggle a lot, and the civilians got it without asking for it. People don't realize that from 2002 onwards, this fixed pension has gone for civil servants. They have to contribute to a pension fund from their salary. 2004. They have to contribute to a pension fund, and what pension they will get will be determined by how much that pension fund is going to earn. But in the army is kept out of that.
Mr. Vasudev's argument that globally the length of service depends on the
pension entitlement
is correct, but it does not apply to the current situation, because in this situation that truncated service is imposed on the Jawan.
Exactly what
he
I'm
doesn't
saying.
wish to.
It's not chosen.
The military over the years.
Why is it not chosen?
How is it imposed?
Why is it not chosen?
Jawan
Because when you join the service.
One minute. Let him complete and then you can
Just let me complete.
Nobody is being forced to go.
The military.
When you join, Jawan retires at this age.
Sir, but then the point is, you're effectively saying, mat karo for
the Jawan is forced. Barkha, over the years.
How can that be a message?
Over the years, the military has put forward numerous statements of cases and so on, supported by several constitutional authorities, that when a Jawan retires at such a young age, he should be laterally sidestepped into forces like the CRPF, which otherwise have comprehensively
private sector किस लिए हम खोल रहे हैं? If government is going to do everything,
we are
talking about a system. I'll give you an example. Just 1 minute. I'll give you an example.
I have to move on, sir. You actually, I heard you say, how are you not choosing? You're signing up for only these many years of service.
Exactly.
The subtext in that is that don't come to the military. We're already facing a shortfall of officers. Who would choose to retire at the age of 37?
You see, even in the paramilitaries, there are some people, some other services like BSF, ITB, people are retiring less than 60.
55. They're retiring at
57 now.
57.
Okay, and all that is a part of the thing. But this whole issue of the pension is redundant now, because no civil servant, including the paramilitaries, nobody is going to get pension. So nobody is going to get pension at all.
General Malik, there is a larger consequence here, because you and I have spoken about this. You actually think this is impacting the relationship, not just the morale of the forces, but the relationship between the civilian bureaucracy and the military.
Firstly, let me talk about the pension. When I joined the service, till 1973, if I am right, the pension was 75% of the pay. suddenly after the third pay commission, the pension of the armed forces personnel was dropped to 50% like everybody else. So we were then equated with. This was soon after the 71 war.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, look, your question was about I'm saying that it is affecting the social status wherever we are staying. It is affecting our functionality when we are, after all, war today is not fought only by the military.
But when they say that a soldier signs up for only those many years of service, I've heard Mr. Vasudev and Mr. Trivedi make that, you know that when you enroll.
Look, I can tell you that.
I don't agree with this, but what do you say to it?
If today the shortage is about 11 or 12,000, you will have more and more people not want
to
join the military.
Yes, I would only ask Mr. Trivedi.
Yeah.
If you want that, you can continue.
Exactly.
I would only counter to Mr. Trivedi, is the military, which signs up for these short lengths of service and therefore has a younger profile, is it more operationally effective as the last recourse of the state?
Of course.
Or is the CRPF, which joins up for 57 years of service?
But
or 57 years of service?
It's designed. It's designed that way.
That is why. That is why the military.
Wait a minute. They are not being punished. They are the only people left with pensions now. Nobody else is getting a pension.
What are your suggestions?
Now, one sec, I'll just say.
I think we have to take a slightly above these two, let me say, warring factions. If you look at it from the national perspective, I think the joining the armed forces for any person in this audience, I see young people, is not an easy decision. They have to live in very hardship places, away from their people, families. They have the prospects of being retired early. They've got a very pyramidal structure.
Yeah.
So, in doing all these things, we should not end up making the armed forces such an unattractive place to work that it will seriously impact our defense.
That's what we are saying.
I think people can be fighting, but at the end of the day, we have to fight Pakistan and China, not bureaucrats versus IAS officers.
Ajay, and I'm taking questions. If people have questions, please raise your hand.
I think it's fundamentally what Ajay said, and I disagree with Mr. Trivedi, that is how we look at the defense. If they retire after 15 years, 17 years, 35 years, all the paramilitary force and the police could recruit them. How we look at re-employing them, I mean, come on, constables is the duty. I mean, I've been an ex-IPS officer. Can you recruit them laterally? Yes, you can. Are we doing it? We are not. Second
why
issue
aren't we doing it?
And that's
why aren't we doing
as a nation,
numerous cases have been taken up, and the CRPF and the other paramilitary forces and the Home Ministry specifically blocks it because they say that it will interfere with the promotion avenues of the CRPF.
So we are not, so as a nation, we continue to, the second issue is the elite defense forces, the colonels and above. Why can't we look after their career interests like the way you're pushing the IAS or the IPS or the other services? You continuously ignore them. And what is in this country to look after elite defense? Because these, look, the morale comes from the top. If the top is demoralized, so look after them.
When you have a former chief saying that this is blatant discrimination, you need to pay attention. Let's take a question here.
Well, I am a university professor, and when I discuss, when I find myself in this crossfire, I can see I have been shortchanged at all the three levels. Like the defense, university of teachers don't have promotions. Like the civil services, we don't have pension. And General Malik, you are talking of retirement. In our services at the moment, people are not even getting entry at 37. So what are we talking of benefits? having said that, on the issue, I just want to say something. There's a very old adage. If you pay peanuts, you are going to get only monkeys. 7th pay commission is a joke for every segment of the services, whether it is civil or it is defense.
So many unhappy parties. Navdeep, you wrote a blog saying, let's hang on, let's not be alarmist yet. None of this has been accepted. But then on the other hand, you have General Malik saying, but we have 18 former chiefs writing and we can't even get an answer.
It is always there with every pay commission. There are recommendations. I'm very hopeful of resolution of many of these anomalies because many regressive recommendations have not been accepted by the government.
No, but look at what we're hearing. We're actually hearing bureaucrats and the CRPF here argue that when you sign up to be a soldier, you know you're going to be voted out at 37.
They are wrong. Why?
And so therefore, what are we saying? Don't join.
They are absolutely wrong.
I mean, that is a terrible messaging.
Even after the 5th pay commission, the government had constituted a high-level committee which said that in the 14th year of service, a military officer would get the same as an IPS officer in 14th years of service. As on date, the 7th pay commission, what has the 7th pay commission done? after 14 years of service, an IPS officer is getting more than what a defense officer will get after
I want
28 years
I
of
want to
service.
ask you a counter question.
Yeah.
The animal called in the defense is that after about 35, 40,
Right.
many people will have to be asked to go home.
Absolutely.
And secondly, what to do with them? They're
But
very
we said
productive at
absorb them
40.
in paramilitary,
So we
absorb them
need
in
a
national
strategy for
security.
redeployment. And these
At the
people are a
moment-
national treasure.
Mr. Vijay,
They're a national
but
treasure.
how are they being treated as a national treasure if we effectively say
why
कि आपको
should they
पता
do
है
that?
जब
No,
आप
give
जवान
these government
होते हैं,
jobs.
आप
he's
retirement
right, he's
lateral
right.
entry.
So guarantee them employment at the age of 60. Don't give them OROP, don't give them
Okay,
allowances.
Sanjay and then General.
Yeah, absolutely. 40 to 60 they should be.
Let's bring it.
Absolutely.
You've said this disquiet is based on wrong facts, but you haven't given us one wrong fact. You know, one of the recommendations, Avdeep, correct me if I'm right, was actually against free rations in peace areas.
Absolutely,
I mean,
not
look
accepted
at what
by the
we're
government.
bringing it down to. We're now arguing against rations.
He was
in
talking.
peace.
He was talking of calories in
shocking.
Siachen.
Yeah.
Calories in Siachen. What about the effect on the health? It's a myth that defense personnel enjoy a better health than civilians. It's an absolute myth.
Correct.
The life expectancy of a Fauji as compared to a civilian counterpart is 10 years lesser. 10 years. So give them calories, give them chocolates, give them almonds. But they are dying earlier. There's inherent stress and strain in a Fauji's life.
So let me get him to respond.
You are misunderstanding me.
Yeah.
I said that an armed forces Jawan who is at higher altitude needs certain special facilities.
Absolutely.
That you have to give him.
Give
Nobody
him.
is screaming that. Listen here, come on. The point is, you can't pick and choose one allowance and
Why
start
not,
beating the
sir?
government
The
or the pay
Siachen allowance
commission.
is a
That is
symbol.
what I had said.
Sir, the
I didn't
Siachen
say that
allowance-
you snatch it from
I
anybody
agree
or
with
give
you.
it to the civil
I
servant.
agree with him, and I also say, I repeat this again, that not just the civil bureaucracy, even the military bureaucracy is to blame. They put out facts which are not exactly sane, more of emotions, less of logic. I agree with him. But the same is also done, for example, this time by the 7th Pay Commission, they put out charts of pay progression which are absolute hogwash.
RB works in a very different environment, we all know that. So why can't we have a separate pay commission for army,
It was rejected
especially
by the
for
military.
that? And why
It
should
was
it be
rejected by the
rejected?
military.
Barka, just a second, Barka.
Can we
There
put
was
this
a
camera
demand.
out? Please,
There
camera
was a
out.
demand which was about to be accepted, but which was rejected
It
by
was
the
accepted. It
by
was
the
accepted.
by
It was
the
rejected by the military.
for a
But-
separate pay commission.
But for valid reasons.
Secondly, what I had said that see, government also has to take a larger picture. Government is not there to take care only of civil services or the armed forces or any other government servant. They have to take a larger picture of that. When you said, because one of the members said that 37.5% is given to the civil servants, whereas 12.5 to the armed.
Yes.
What exactly has happened that it was in the earlier dispensation where the 7th Pay Commission has clubbed it and has reduced it to 30%. So if you are in the All India services, you will get 30%.
Let me ask you simply.
Whereas,
Let me ask you simply. A bureaucrat in Guwahati and a soldier at Siachen, who gets more in hardship allowance?
आज के तारीख में same हो गया है, 30% हो जाएगा.
Ajay, you want to come in on that? Ajay, you want to come in on that?
If
Because
that recommendation is accepted,
I don't
it
think
is
that's
still
correct. I think it's 55,000
this
plus
is
for
a-
the bureaucrat in Guwahati and 31,500 for the soldier at
30% is only
Siachen.
for
Okay, now we're going to play out an interview of Justice Mathur. You can all do final comments in reaction to him. Ajay, go ahead. Yeah, I'm coming
It's
to
a
you, sir.
complete travesty. The fact of the matter is they get much more because they have numerous associations, and his own association is there shaping it. Now, let me give you an example of how these associations work. The Railways Association said that those who are employed on trains that are running must get a 30% running allowance. Then within the railways, a body of opinion came up that this is discriminating against those who are not running on trains. So everybody who's not running on trains then got a 30% non-running allowance.
No, you're joking.
I'm not kidding. This is in the 7th Pay Commission. This is in the 7th Pay Commission.
Yes.
that though the police force and the armed forces do not have associations, but let me tell you, you can ask Justice Mathur.
Police has an association.
No.
There's an IPS association.
No, IPS association is there, but
association is
the larger force do not have an association.
Okay.
Secondly, the pay commission has met many more times. The armed forces, it has only met us 3 times.
Okay, I will get General Malik to come in on that, but one second. Justice Mathur was the chairman of the Pay Commission. I interviewed him earlier today, and I know a lot of you will, in your final comments, would want to react to him. So let's just play out that interview. Now, Justice Mathur, as the chairman of the Pay Commission, how do you see the very sensitive issue of actually equalizing the IAS with the IPS, that's the Indian Administrative Service, with the Indian Police Service, as well as the Forest Service? Why did your Pay Commission decide to recommend that?
You see, the point was that there was a very strong grievance made by the IPS officers and Indian Foreign Service officers, Forest Service officer, as well as the employees of the officers of the central services. The IAS used to get a priority in every spare. They said since the examination is one and all are put to the same test, only because of the merits they are arranged in the first goes to the IAS, next goes to the IPS, and rest goes to the central services. Then why there should be disparity in there? For example, IAS after recommended 6th Pay Commission, they started getting 2 additional increment or above the normal increment.
Yes.
This was protested by the IPS officer that since we are all together, why should an advantage be given to them?
Right.
Therefore, I thought it proper to make them all equal in Article 16 of the Constitution. They must be fairly treated and all should get the same benefits as are being given to IAS people.
Now, Justice
That was
Mathur,
big
while
consideration in my mind.
right now, Justice Mathur, while this decision to actually equalize the police with the IAS, even the Forest Service with the IAS, has created disquiet within the bureaucracy at one level, it has also caused the military community, sir, to feel quite irate about this proposal. Their argument is that by actually elevating the police and the Forest Service to the level of the IAS, you have actually left the military in a sense out of the cold. You must have heard this feedback as well. How do you see the military's disquiet at this elevation of the police and the Forest Service?
Well, I think that this kind of disquiet raised by defense forces are totally uncalled for, because we have not disturbed their parity. They stand where they are. Rather, I must say that I have been more liberal towards the defense forces, much more than what they were getting under the 6th Pay Commission. Today, this person who was serving in Saichin gets 31,500 as an allowance, whereas they were getting only 21,000, and JCOs are going to get 21,000. And likewise, all the allowances has been abnormally, raised for their benefits. Now, so far as their feeling that we are above IAS or should be treated with IAS, well, that should be made clear in their mind that they belong to a defense forces and the IAS and IPS belong to a civil services. There cannot be any parity so far as their functioning is concerned. The defense forces has a different role to play. The civilian forces has to play a civilian job. So with this kind of seeking parity with them, in my opinion, is totally uncalled for. We have given them money-wise, they are much better off. If you compare the start salary of an All India service with the services of the gazetted officers of the army, like Lieutenant Colonel onwards, they are getting 15,000 over and above, and they have the benefit of pension. They have a free ration. They have all other benefits which are not available to the civilian forces. The 15,000 military service pay is all time above, and which they compare with the civil services, they are much better off. Well, so far as the civil services are concerned, they are more available to the public at large. Media also covers them. But defense forces, they are required at a time of emergency. They have a different role model to play. Therefore, the comparison between the two is totally uncalled for. But I can assure you that defense forces are much better off financially. They cannot ask better than this.
But Justice Mathur, while it is absolutely true that the Pay Commission does recommend a substantial increase in, let's say, the hardship allowance that soldiers are now going to get at Siachen, the fact is that the argument is also relative. And what the military is really upset about is your recommendation that a hardship allowance for a bureaucrat, let's say, who's posted in Guwahati should be 55,000 plus. How do you respond to the specific outrage over this hardship allowance?
The only IAS officers, they are only getting 30,000 hardship allowance in Northeast Assam only. Whereas the officers who are posted in the Northeast area will get 15,000 MSP plus they will get the about more than 16,000 as a hardship, as a high altitude area allowance. So in any case, only in one area they want to say that the IAS are getting 30,000 and we are getting say about almost 30,000. If you take MSP plus their high altitude allowance, that makes more than 30,000. And now only area why the IAS has been given, a rationale has been given by the government. The rationale was that the people were not attracted to these areas. Therefore, in order to attract the talent to serve in the northeast area, this special allowance was incurred right from beginning. So we did not disturb their allowance. But in any case, we did not in any way put the defense people in a disadvantaged position. 15,000 is an all-time high for all of them. Plus, they will be getting a high altitude allowance also, which may vary from 16,000 or 17,000, whatever it is, looking to the location where they are posted. So it will make them more than 30,000 allowance. Then where the question of grievance? Secondly, you must understand the role played by them. This was given only to IAS people. This is not given to any other central services. Mind, it is not given if a railway officer goes to serve in Northeast, he is not getting, he is only getting 12% allowance.
All right, now I think we're going to see some very strident reactions, but it also gives you a sense of the mindset. I'm going to take quick audience questions, then we take last comments. I know a lot of you will have something to say on what he said.
2 points, Barkha. First, oh God, I never realized I was so well off as a soldier. All these wise people have made me feel like a fool, and to be, motivated by soldiers. I'm going to tell my son and daughter, army is not a good option. Number 2.
You will actually say that?
I will. And point number 2, Swiss chocolates, which everyone is so jealous of. Sir, it is no fun to eat them at Siachen. All you get is piles. A lot of piles because you eat non-green food, which is like you're staying in such a harsh area. And all the wise people out here that the wars can be won by bureaucrats and technocrats. Soldiers are not required. So, sir, my son or daughter, not going to be.
And this is what General Malik has actually been warning against, this sentiment. Yes.
Ma'am, I would like to say that I'm myself from the army background and I also want to join army. But my dad quotes the example of 7th pay commission and says that, why? This is what is done to army. Why do you want to join it?
Basically, I'm from Guwahati. So I know the conditions of what Guwahati is a very developed city. So someone being posted in Guwahati, he is getting more incentive. I can understand is comparing with the Siachen. Secondly,
you can or you cannot.
I cannot. I cannot I can't understand why
Guwahati is considered a hardship.
Yeah, hardship. I can understand. I myself am Guwahati. It's almost a very developed city. Maybe some incidents are there, but overall it's
yeah, and actually, Ajay, I'll start taking final comments. Now, what really struck me about Justice Mathur, he said it's to incentivize bureaucrats who don't want to be posted in the Northeast. But, as if soldiers, they have a choice in where they're posted.
Barkha, this, it speaks completely and illustrates beautifully the different mindsets that come to serving in the military, as opposed to, many civil services.
Yeah.
There are really good people, I have to admit, in the civil services. There are great police officers, there are great bureaucrats and so on. But they are allowed to get away with these arguments, that otherwise koi service nahi karega.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of argument is this? Second, Justice Mathur has been citing military service pay as one great benefit that is given to the army. First of all, military service pay in one form or the other is given to most militaries to compensate them for what is called the intangible hardships of military service. For example, your wife can't work, your kids are brought up with the father away, you can't attend family functions and so on. People say, what is this military service pay? What's so special about the military in this? I'll illustrate it only with a personal example, and quick personal example. I was commanding in 1998. As second in command, I was commanding my unit in active counterinsurgency operations near Poonch because my CO was away on leave and my father was dying in Delhi. We knew he was going to go anyway. And I could not, as realistically as a military commanding officer, ask for leave. We don't do it. It's in our culture. We don't do it in addition. I was told at 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, I was told, your father has passed away. I was rushed to the airport in Jammu. I caught a flight, reached here in Delhi at 4 o'clock. My father's fire was already burning. For that kind of hardship and that kind of culture is what military service pay is all about.
Yeah. I'm taking the last comment here, and then everybody gets 30 seconds to wrap this up. Go ahead.
So it's not all about the hike. Armed forces are not greedy. It's about the position, the honor, and the stature they want, they're concerned about. So as a nation, don't you think we need to look into this?
Okay, let's start with last comments. Navdeep, please, 30 seconds each.
Yes.
I'm out of time. Yeah.
Firstly, what Justice Mathur says, I want to retort to that.
Yeah.
Number one, there have been historical parities. IPS and the commission cadre of the military were always equal. There was parity. It has been disturbed by this pay commission and also by the last. When he says about MSP, take away MSP, especially from the commissioned ranks, and give them everything else. All services are performing due and great functions, including the IAS, the IPS, perfectly fine. Okay. However, these hardships, etc., give them the same pay progression, but give them additional benefits for hardships, inherent stress and strain, what Colonel Shukla pointed out, how it affects the health.
Okay, Sanjay.
See, the point is what I was saying on facts, the chairman had said he is not an IAS officer, so let's be very clear, the retired judge of the Supreme Court.
But he's not a soldier either. And
he's not a soldier either.
There is no military representation
he's not from the railways or from any other service. See, the point which every time people say that civil services, because merit mein they were a topper, therefore they got the IAS. In any Olympics or any sports, there's a thin line difference between the gold medal and the silver medal. If you have not got it, go again for the gold medal.
They can't. They chose to be in the military.
No. I'm not talking about the military. It's spoken about between inter services. No. Now, Ajay ji, let me tell you, even in these civil services, I am from South. I am in UP. I am in remote areas of UP. I also face the same thing when my father expired. So, see, let's not say that only armed forces are posted in remote areas. Even civil services, IAS, IPS, and IFS, they are picked up from one area and you are given a cadre. And no, ma'am, no. We don't make case studies. There have been officers who have been killed from Manipur. Okay. I can give you dozens of examples.
Okay,
one last point. Okay. Now, if everybody feels that the IAS is such a big trouble for the country, the Prime Minister can call a meeting of the Interstate Council and can take a call whether to keep the service or to demolish it.
All respect to the IAS, there is no
please, 30 seconds, everybody.
But we've all been debating on parity, and I keep telling people that parity is in our DNA. So if somebody says, look, every time your parents will say that why did your neighbor get a better job than you, you are quite a clown. Same thing is parity. So it's in our DNA. So if somebody says army should not be defense, should not be brought about parity, it's going against human DNA. Absolutely. They will be obsessed with parity. The second issue is, I'll just finish. The redeployment of soldiers.
Yes.
They have to be in the paramilitary and have to be in the police and they have to get the lateral induction. Otherwise, you continuously disrespect them and that's the dumbest thing.
What has come out in the last 1 hour is a deep sense of disappointment and distrust in what is perhaps the most important aspect of our government, which is the armed forces.
Yes.
So I think pay commission is one thing. The government should take a deeper dive and see how issues of perception, parity, and post-pension employment are dealt with, because without that, we're going to weaken our armed forces, and that's the worst thing we can do.
No, I totally agree. I think it is extremely important for the government and the nation to maintain the morale of the armed forces. But in discussions of this type and debates of this type, I think it's very difficult to have a rational discussion in an emotive background. Army is a service which is joining a service to lay down his life for the country.
Yeah, exactly.
So in that type of an emotive background, rational discussion cannot take place. But I agree that the government must do all it can to maintain.
Rationally, therefore, its role should not be compared with others because nobody else does sign up to die.
I know. It's very difficult to compare. It's very difficult to compare.
I'm saying don't compare. That's what I'm saying. Don't compare.
No.
I want to know the mindset of people who drafted. Like I have just quoted, this disability pension for JCUs and equivalent is 12,000. On the other hand, for the civilian counterparts is about 27,000.
Don't look at me. I have not drafted.
It's true. But Navdeep works in this area.
It's a good thing what you have pointed out. The pay commission has actually cast aspersions on disabled soldiers by saying that officers are getting, 18% of officers are getting disability pension, but ORs are not getting it, forgetting that officers retire in their 50s and other ranks retire in their 30s.
Mr. Trivedi,
they're bound to have more problems.
Mr. Trivedi, then General Malik takes the last word. Yes.
I would agree with Mr. Vasudevan. It's a highly emotive issue. So I don't, at times we are moving away from the facts and getting into emotions. But the fact does remain that, as you said, that who signs up for dying, a lot of people in the police are dying, possibly more than that die in the army of the year. If you see right from Chhattisgarh to other things. And second, in the corps, as Shukla ji said about his experience, I have worked in BSF, I have worked with ITBP, I have worked with CRPF, we have faced insurgency in central India everywhere. So we are also having these problems, we also have these issues. I can also come out with 10 examples like
Okay, General Malik, please wrap this up.
Firstly, I mean, when people speak like this, they don't understand the kind of weapon equipment and that we have to use now in modern warfare, from missiles, nuclear weapons, missiles, and going to the infantry. I mean, ours is a very complex, very difficult profession today. It's become more difficult with technicalities. Secondly, you know, I use a word, very strong word, discrimination in the beginning. The discrimination is that, firstly, there is no, we are 30% of the central government employees, armed forces. There was no representation in the pay commission. There was no representation in the empowered committee, which had members from all other services, most other services. And even today, nobody is representing the armed forces in these committees which are going on. All these committees are with the civilian bureaucrats and others who are, there is no one from the armed forces either serving or retired who's been taken into these things. That is the reason why there is this sense of resignation that hamara koi mai baap nahi hai. That's a very serious comment that I'm making.
And it's a very serious comment to end on, when 18 former chiefs actually are reaching out to the Prime Minister, have not heard back. When you have young people in this audience saying, my father tells me, why do you want to join the military? If we don't pay attention to that, I think we really have to wonder what we will pay attention to. We can talk about slogans of nationalism and patriotism, but when it comes down to the crunch, what are we doing? That's the question I leave you with. Thank you very much.